I can remember sitting with my dad at church one Sunday in November, well over 35 years ago. I can remember clearly that it was November because I was playing with the pin that I had pulled out of a poppy that I found on the floor. And as the preacher preached on and on, I poked away gently at the calluses on my hands, pulling up little pieces of dry skin. Then I thought, man, Dad's hands are way more callous than mine. I wonder how deep I can push this pin into his calluses. Dad, who was intently listening to the pastor, ignored me as I started to gently poke at his hands, undisturbed because of the thick layer of skin that had built up, until I pushed just a little too hard. I remember that situation drawing a great deal more attention to our section that Sunday. Over time, through repeated friction, wear, and damage, and obviously no skin care regimen, Dad's hands had built up a thick layer of callous skin, making his hands tough, rough, and impenetrable, it seemed. These calluses are a profound analogy that the Bible uses to describe the condition of many of our hearts. A heart that has lost its sensitivity and has become stubborn and rebellious, having been hardened by repeated wear, damage, and lack of care. Calloused hands, though, serve to protect a worker from constant irritation and pain. Psychologically speaking as well, we tend to build up a defensive layer which causes us to become insensitive to things that we would just rather ignore, reject, or deny. In the Bible, the heart is the inner person, that thing that sets the direction for our life, our passions, and inevitably our actions and our speech. So how is it that our heart can become calloused or hard? And how do I know if my heart is calloused? Some listening to this are just going to say, well, I go to church. It can't be me. I pray, I read my Bible, I do good things, I listen to people. But Jesus most often confronts religious people regarding their hard and calloused hearts. Places like Mark 8 or Matthew 13. Just as the worker's hands develop calluses by constant exposure, many people who are repeatedly exposed to spiritual revelation can grow insensitive to exactly what is being spoken. We know the words, and we even know the right thing to say in response. And yet, our hearts are far removed from the reality and weight of the truths and also the implications that they have for our lives. Sometimes the hardness of our hearts is due to damage done to us in the past, and so we put up our guard and try to protect ourselves from what we perceive might be harmful, because it did at the hands of others. Other times it is simply our stubborn pride that just desperately wants to live in the comfort and routine of our current lifestyle, so we simply refuse to change and listen. But the more that we hear truth and refuse to respond appropriately to it, the more layers of callous that our hearts develop until eventually our hearts become cold and outright rebellious. While a calloused heart might feel comfortable momentarily, it will hold massive repercussions on our future and our eternity if we choose to neglect such a great hope when it's presented to us. So, what's the solution? What do we do with a hard heart? God's solution begins with an offer to give us a new heart. According to the Bible, our stubborn heart is damaged beyond repair. We need a heart transplant. And in Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 26, God tells us that He will give us a new heart. Not a heart of stone, but a heart of flesh. A sensitive heart. But just as the reality in the physical world, in order for a transplant to take place, the damaged heart needs to be replaced from a donor heart. And every donor donates a heart at the cost of his life. For us to receive a new heart, God in His love mercifully sent and offered His own Son's life on our behalf, so that we could receive a new heart, His heart, and receive new life, a life that comes through His Son. The writer of Hebrews warns us, today, if you hear His voice, don't harden your hearts as you did in your rebellion. Hebrews 3:15. His offer is for you, so don't harden your heart today. Ask God to give you a new heart, a heart of flesh.